Hello, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to Satsang. Satsang is an ancient spiritual practice from India. It means being in reality together. I give Satsang live every Wednesday and Sunday night in Portland, Maine. This Dharma talk was recorded during one of our Wednesday night gatherings. Please visit jayakula.org to learn more about the teachings. You can find video satsangs on Jayakula's YouTube channel, and my books are all available on Amazon.com. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. Even though I don't talk about him very much, there was an American tantric teacher named Swami Rudranandra. He was from Brooklyn, and he was a big, barrel-chested, tough guy, certainly a great practitioner and a great teacher. And even though I don't talk about him that much, you really can't underestimate how much he influenced me. I learned about him at a very important time in my life when I really needed those teachings. And he is more than I think any other teacher I've ever had until Ma, the teacher that made me understand or opened up for me the understanding that this practice is about opening the heart. Rudy taught in this particular style that is what he called meditation, but from my perspective it wasn't meditation. He held sessions a couple times a week, or maybe more, I don't really know, above his Asian antique shop in New York City, where he did eye-to-eye transmission with people and gave oral teachings. And then at some point in his life he also started touching people, giving Shaktipat with his hands also. And he was, he really in control of his energy, of that level of manifestation. So people felt very strong effects from that. But for me, Rudy was always about the heart. And the one story that Rudy wrote about that has stuck with me, ever since I read it, and it's become emblematic for me, and it's still teaching me about what one does as a practitioner. What is the most important thing to do as a practitioner? And it's not maybe what some people think the most important thing for a practitioner to do. But the way Rudy started out is a beautiful story. He just rented some cheapo storefront in Hell's Kitchen on the west side, which, back then was cheapo, now it would be astronomical. Anyway, some $100 a month crappy storefront. And he had some Asian antique tchotchkes in his apartment. And he took those things out of his apartment and put them in this store. And then eventually some people bought some things, and then he bought some more Asian art. And slowly over time, he became the largest dealer of Asian artifacts and art in New York City. He had 3 different storefronts, each one getting progressively larger. As I understand it, the place where he taught was always in the same building as where the store was. So he had, I think, in one of the stores, maybe the first one, sort of like a loft-like teaching space above the store. And I'm not exactly sure about the other stores. I went once and tried to find out where these places were in New York, and I did locate one of his former teaching spots, and it was like a coffee shop or something. It was kind of funny to think about that. And I went in the building, and I met some old geezer in the hallway who lived in the building and probably been there forever. And I said, "Did you ever hear of Swami Rudranandra?" He's like, "Oh yeah, Rudy, the Kundalini Tantra guy." He still remembered him. So we had this funny little conversation. And eventually Rudy, he bought some land at Big Indy in New York and taught up there. And then his students started establishing what they called ashrams. I'm not really sure how they ran or what that was really about. But in any case, Rudy talked a lot, and they recorded a lot of his talks, and then they became books. So all of the books that Rudy, as far as I know, the books that are published under Rudy's name are all transcripts of talks. And he tells a story in one of his books. I was trying to find it before satsang, but I think it's in a book that somehow isn't in the library anymore. But he was sitting in his shop, and a homeless woman came in. And she was a little crazy. And she was just sort of pottering around the store and muttering. And, you know, he was sitting behind the counter, and as he describes it, as I remember it, I haven't read it in years. I was hoping to refresh my memory. But anyway, I think this is enough, good, close enough. You know, he became very tense, wondering if she was going to break something, wondering what she was going to do, and feeling like he wanted her to leave the store. And then, as he narrates it, he realized that in that moment, that if he didn't open his heart to her, if he didn't treat her with humanity and in the fullness of humanity, and instead of just treating her like the homeless person who might break something, as he says in the book, my practice would be down the drain. It would be in the toilet. He said, this is where the practice is. How am I going to relate to this woman? Right? And he talks about the tremendous work that he did in that moment to open his heart to her and to go up to her and being really actually open-hearted toward her. And this just, you know, impressed itself on me. And I always think of it when I'm having difficulties with anybody. I'm not ever actually having difficulties with anybody. I'm having difficulties with me. So I always think of that this is actually the most important work. That you are really trying to open your heart in the fullness of everything you can possibly give and be that in relationship with others. Of course, to be able to do that does take a lot of practice. It does take doing a lot of whatever you do in your spiritual practice. But the real heart of the practice is the heart. And being in a state of non-defensiveness to everyone. And I learned that from Rudy. He was really the only teacher that ever taught that I have ever had. You know, everybody talks about compassion, but they never really talked about the actual nitty-gritty work that you do to discover compassion. Right? And Rudy really talked about that, and I think that's the most important part of his legacy, for me anyway. So this is Rudy talking. There is that within a human being that wants to surrender and even tries to do so. The fact that never seems to be fully understood is that surrender is complete surrender. There is usually some area in which you feel you do not have to surrender, or in which surrender can be postponed. If surrender is to have effect, everything must be let go of. Tying a rope around yourself and letting yourself down the side of a mountain is not the same as jumping off the mountain and falling into space. And what I've discovered in working with students, and with myself also, is that the where we postpone surrender and where we postpone or put off or think we don't have to surrender is in our relationships with other people. We can talk about our practice. We can ask questions about our practice, but when it comes to other people, where is our attention going? Our attention's going to how I feel. Oh, I feel badly about something. I feel ashamed of something. I wish I didn't do that. I'm having a problem. I have issues. I wish other people would be different. Other people are annoying me. our focus is rarely on how can I really open in this situation and let go of my defensiveness, my ego defenses, my self-definition, my idea of what I'm owed or not owed, my idea of what is righteous or not righteous. How can I let go of that ego when I feel criticized? When I feel the possibility that other people might not like me? When you feel that possibility, most of you just whine about it. You're not actually going out into the community trying to open your heart and see what's actually happening in the freshness of the moment. You're whining about how badly you feel about something. A lot of the time, if I point something out in the moment about how someone is showing up, how they are treating other people, then I'll get, they'll burst into tears. Oh, I feel so badly. This is a narcissistic response. Instead of doing what Rudy did and what I also try to do as much as I possibly can, which is to go inside, take responsibility for your own tension, and do some internal work to let go of it. And then just see what happens without any preconception. When you relate in the world like that, tremendous possibility opens up. For your own sense of freedom, your own sense of personal freedom, of no longer being strangled by your own self-absorption. The level of self-absorption in this community is very high, from my perspective. And it's all being, bannered under, I'm doing my work, I'm working on myself. But it's really still mostly about me, myself, and I. There are some people in the community that are thinking in a fine-grained way about how they are treating and being with other people. There are some people doing that. But by and large, there are a lot of other people who have mistaken this constant worrying about yourself for actual spiritual work. That isn't actual spiritual work, turns out. The idea is that you are surrendering that self-referentiality, that obsessive self-concern. You are surrendering your knee-jerk response to having something pointed out to you, of crumpling into a little self-protective blubbering ball. Whatever that looks like for you. I'm actually not interested in how badly you feel about yourself. That's very, very boring. I'm not interested in how badly I feel about myself. I am not interested in my issues. I am not interested in my problems. I am not interested in my story. And, why should I be interested in yours? Right? I'm interested in how can I open my heart and experience this moment without any constructs. How can I experience real devotion in this moment, no matter what is happening? That is what I am interested in. So we live in this very psychologized culture, and we think that we're doing the good work when we get in there and feel bad about ourselves. That isn't the good work. That's what we have to let go of. That is irresponsible. To be continually confronted with how you are showing up in the world and then shutting the door and putting a sign on it that says, "Don't bother me, I'm working with my problems." This is Rudy. A person with a hustler's mind. Some of you think you're hustling me. You're not. I'm biding my time. I'm just waiting for what I sense is the right moment to push you off the cliff. For some of you, I've waited a long time. A person with a hustler's mind shopping for bargains in the spiritual marketplace always ends up buying exactly what will keep him from any realization in his ordinary life. It certainly will not give him the return for his effort, time, and money. There is no bargain in spirituality. There is only the willingness to do the work that is required to grow. Surrender must be complete. It is not trying to appease a situation by doing what you think somebody else wants. It is surrendering totally to God so that you attract exactly what is needed, not what your limited concept of the need is or your interpretation of what the need is. So you can see why Rudy is so wonderful. The first place you can start is by how you relate to it when you notice something about how you're showing up, or how you relate when I point something out about how you're showing up. What are you doing right in those moments? Some of you are just paying lip service to being spiritual practitioners in those situations. You're willing to put in your hour or 2 hours or 3 hours a day doing whatever you do behind closed doors. You're willing to do seva and participate with the community. But you are not willing to really take responsibility for how you are showing up in your relationships with other people. Some of you have an iron grip on that. And when things are pointed out, you either pay lip service and pretend that you are working with it and dealing with it, or you really just slam the door, or you start going into some emotional overdrive, some just histrionic emotions that also amount to blocking out any sensitivity you could possibly have in the situation to help you deal with it. So what do you do in those moments? First of all, you have to listen and you have to let go of your reaction to not hear what is being said or what you are seeing in yourself. You have to force yourself not to run away. And then you have to relax. And then you have to look at what can I do? What, as Rudy says, what spiritual muscle can I use to help me to relax in this situation and really open my heart? You don't have to do anything but open your heart, really. Everything else will flow from that, but you have to figure out how to do that. And if you want to figure out how to do that, you have to be willing to actually do that work. In uncomfortable situations where you would rather crumple up into a ball or go in your room and shut the door, or go yada yada yada, yeah, 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 or have, talk about how badly you feel, or let somebody else make the first move and move the situation along for you, even though you were the one that acted out. So you have to understand more what spiritual work is really about. You don't get to carry your shitty way of relating to other people and your narcissistic self-involvement with you. You don't get to take that with you. But first you have to see it for what it is. You are misunderstanding what spiritual work is. If you think it has anything to do with sitting around feeling badly about yourself. Of course, we all have moments where we feel regret. And we have karmas that cause us to go to that place where we use feeling bad as a way of hiding out and not taking responsibility for ourselves. Of course, we have those karmas. They're real karmas. We can't just tell them, Shazam, right? But we have to recognize that doing that is not doing spiritual work. That is not what it is. And if you can recognize that, you can begin to detach yourself from the false view that being very internal and feeling bad about yourself or hiding out or letting somebody else do the work is spiritual work. You have to divest yourself of the concept that you can do hours of spiritual practice a day and not do this relationship work. That's bullshit. Now, you know from the teachings that I've given for years that we're not trying to act compassionate. We're not trying to manufacture some faux lovingness. In fact, when I go into communities and people are doing that, it just gives me the heebie-jeebies. Because that is also a detour. You can avoid doing real spiritual work while you're acting compassionate. Oh, okay. Pulled that one off. No one knew I was really seething with resentment that whole time. Real spiritual work is you actually go in there and you relax your tensions. You make a commitment. You have the will to do that. You don't think it's somebody else's job. You don't think I have a right to feel this way. You don't think I'll just do this one more time. You don't think the other person is an asshole, so I'm justified in doing this. Those are all false view, all of those points of view. Everyone is made of the same absolutely awesome and devotion-worthy self. And you have to discover that. That's what spiritual work is about. You have to discover that. Swami Lakshmanju talks about what work we're doing, and it relates to what I've been talking about. He's talking about how you get the real knowledge of God consciousness. And that's what we're talking about in all of these everyday situations. How do we get the real knowledge of who we are and who the other person is? That's what opening our heart is. When we open our heart, we get the real knowledge, right, of who we are and who other people are. Swami Lakshmanju is talking about that it's your own organs, and he means your sense organs, that will direct you to God consciousness. He says, following Abhinavagupta, that your own sense organs are your masters, are your teachers. And this relates to something I've talked about, especially with respect to mind, that we have to reach out and reach in with our senses in a very special way in order to work spiritually, in order to open our hearts, in order to discover things when we're sitting on a meditation cushion or sitting with other people. We have to actually open our senses in a situation. We have to feel with our mind. We have to reach out toward the other person. We have to go inside and feel with our senses what it means to relax. Swami Lakshmanju says this is the real nature of upadesha. This is the real nature of working directly. That we're working with our organs, who are gods, who are masters, who are gurus. They are the ones that can tell us how to open our heart. They are the ones that can tell us wisdom, that can teach us real wisdom. But they have to be working very subtly. So if you are trying to open your heart, but you're really just in your head thinking stuff about opening your heart, that isn't going to work at all. You just end up with faux open-heartedness. You have to reach in with your mind, reach in with your organs, feel the actual tension, and try to relax it. Feel the real tension with all of your senses. You have to reach toward the other person in a fresh way with your mind and your senses and really feel them there in their living presence. And really feel your connection to other people, using your organs in this subtle way. There are infinite subtle things happening in your wisdom heart, in your energy body, in other people, between you and other people. There is not space between you and other people. There is not emptiness inside of your chest. There are infinite flows, infinite textures, infinite wisdoms there. And you have to begin to use your mind and use your senses in a more direct way. But you have to be willing to do that first. And that is the real kicker. Because most of you aren't willing to really go there. You aren't really willing to surrender all your tensions in relation to other people. You're still all wrapped up in, do they like me? Or what jerks they are, or whatever you're thinking and feeling. You're all wrapped up in all that stuff, and you're not willing to let go because you are afraid of the freshness of intimacy that is really there when you let go of all that stuff. So you have to be willing to experience that freshness. You have to be willing to let go of yourself, of all those constructs that you've been walking around in the world with, like RoboCop. Yeah. So step one is you have to be willing. You have to understand that this is what spiritual work really is. Some people come and talk to me, they just want to be with me, but they manufacture lists of problems to talk to me about because they think that's what I'm going to be interested in. I'm not interested. I would rather you just showed up and sat and said nothing. And did some real work to connect. So this is what you have to do. And again, if you are still insisting on being you, on your right to be you, none of this is going to happen. You can practice on your cushion till you turn blue, drop dead, and dry up. You have to be willing to do this work. You have to make a decision. You have to understand that this is what it is. So I'm telling you what it is. Okay. That's it. That's all I got. Jayakula is a nonprofit community offering opportunities to learn and practice in the direct realization traditions of Trika Shaivism and Dzogchen. We are based in Portland, Maine and Portland, Oregon. Visit jayakula.org to explore more of our offerings.